But this is something by Donald Trump, who posted on Truth Social saying, some very strange things are happening in China. They are becoming very hostile and sending letters to countries throughout the world that they want to impose export controls on each and every element of production having to do with rare earths and virtually anything else they can think of, even if it's not manufactured in China. Nobody has ever seen anything like this, but essentially it would clog the markets and make life difficult for virtually every country in the world, especially for China. We have been contacted by other countries who are extremely angry at this great trade hostility, which came out of nowhere. Our relationship with China over the past 6 months has been a very good one, thereby making this move on trade an even more surprising one. I've always felt that they had been lying in wait, and now, as usual, I've been proven right. There is no way that China should be allowed to hold the world captive, but that seems to have been their plan for quite some time, starting with the magnets and other elements that they have quietly amassed into somewhat of a monopoly position, a rather sinister and hostile move to say the least. But the US has monopoly positions also much stronger and far more reaching than China's. I have just not chosen to use them. There was never a reason for me to do so until now. The letter they sent is many pages long, in details with great specificity, each and every element that they want to withhold from other nations. Things that were routine are no longer routine at all. I have not spoken to the President Xi, President Z, because there was no reason to do so. This was a real surprise, not only to me, but to all the leaders of the free world. I was to meet President Xi, President Xi, President Z, President Z, President Winnie the Pooh in 2 weeks at APEC in South Korea, but now there seems to be no reason to do so. The Chinese letters were especially inappropriate in that this was the day that after 3,000 years of bedlam fighting, there is peace in the Middle East. I wonder if that timing was coincidental. Depending on what China says about the hostile order that they have just put out, I will be forced, as President of the United States of America, to financially counter their move. For every element that they have been able to monopolize, we have two. I have never, I never thought it would come to this, but perhaps, as with all things, the time has come. Ultimately, though, potentially painful, it will be a very good thing in the end for the USA. One of the policies that we are calculating at this moment is a massive increase of tariffs on Chinese products coming to the United States of America. There are many other countermeasures that are likewise under serious consideration. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. Wow. China has made its move. The great communist overlords over there in Asia have finally made their move, and I think it's not surprising whatsoever that the commies are trying to do anything and everything they can to control the world, to limit the world's ability to do fair and open trade. And that's why I've said, and I think many other people have said over and over and over again, that it's incredibly important that the United States not let China or any communist nation attain any sort of control whatsoever. To allow a communist to control anything in the world is to allow absolute despair and bedlam to prosper. And the only way to have a safe and prosperous world is to have a Western nation that relies on freedom and liberty and open trade for the world, like the United States of America, the greatest nation that has ever been in the history of the world. Anyways, China's pissed Taiwan's chips are so strong for US. Well, China's pissed because they can't do anything of their own. They can't make anything on their own. Every advancement they've had has been because of their espionage campaigns. They are quite good at espionage, but mainly because the Western world is so free. They have a completely closed off society, completely closed off economy, and yet they use the freedom and liberty of the West in order to infiltrate them with all sorts of spies and steal plans, steal blueprints, steal technology, and then bring it back to China, where they try to create facsimile versions of them that completely crumble within a few years. That's why their great towers are crumbling to the ground, because they're made out of cheap concrete and other such cheap steel and things like that that only allow them to stay for a couple years before they just fall apart on themselves. Everything they have is made out of essentially paper mache, and you know They're Timu copies. Exactly. That's why everything that they make and they bring into the world, which by the way, if we were to no longer have any Chinese products, the world would not suffer. It would actually be a better place because everything that China brings into the world is cheap plastic bullshit. They're Timu products, they're nonsense like this. Every single thing made in China is an inferior version of something that could be made in the West, much better and stronger and of higher quality. That's it. To build hollow concrete blocks, that is true. Yeah, true. Exactly. The fact of the matter is that China only prospers through the ability to manipulate their own economy and to manipulate others to do business with them, along with forcing people in their country to work for literal slave labor prices, excuse me. And once they can no longer do the things they're doing, once their people actually rise up against them, which they very will. It's becoming harder and harder for the people of China to be kept in the dark about the atrocities that their government participates in and perpetuates day after day after day. You know, and it's gonna come day one day comes ahead. I mean, that's simply the reason why if you go on things like Marvel Rivals, which is a game through Tencent, which is a Chinese company, you're not even allowed to talk about Tiananmen Square. You're not allowed to talk about any of these things because they are so censored in China. You know, they're so their people don't even know about these things. They don't know about the uprisings of student uprisings. They don't know about all these fights for freedom that happen, you know? And what's really funny is that the left in America never talk about the atrocities happening in China, a communist nation, yet they want to talk about their perceived atrocities happening in the West, which pale in comparison to the things that are happening in China all the time. Yet, of course, that's not their focus on, right? Mainly because I'm sure a lot of their funding actually comes from communist China, which has seeked to um, create division within the United States and other Western countries for a very long time because they know that it's impossible to attack and to control the United States of America or any Western country when we are united and strong, you know? And communism has been a failure every single time it has been implemented anywhere.